Hey everyone, I'm Kira,
And I'm Morgan.
and we're your hosts for Distilled Church Finance Made Simple. Today, we are going to be talking about how to protect your church's money. We're super stoked for this topic because strong financial controls aren't about suspicion, they're about protection. When churches have wise guardrails, they protect their resources, their leaders, and trust that fuels generosity. So before we jump in, Morgan, do you want to give us our icebreaker question for today?
I sure do. All right. This is a very serious one, and it took a lot of thought. If you could rename pigeons, what would you call them? Think
Oh.
hard.
I almost want to go like dinosaur theme, like some sort of raptor or something like, but silly, right? Like the Pidgeotto or something, because it's just so dumb. But it also has some slight like bird-like dino energy to me. What
Mm.
about you?
Yeah, totally. I can see that, like the velociraptor, but in a bird form. I think I would have to go with sky chickens. Because they kind of feel equivalent to chickens, but they can fly.
I love that. That tops all answers that I will ever hear. Sky chickens. Wow. Okay, well, thank you for that. That blessed my day. And now on to talk about how to protect your church's money.
Let's do it.
Great things about ministries and faith-based organizations is that they're funded by the generosity of people out there. And so, we think about like all the billions of dollars that are given towards helping this mission go across. I wanted to just start with the statistic. $160 million is stolen from faith-based organizations today.
Wow.
And that's going to happen tomorrow and the next day for 365 days.
Wow.
That puts that $60 billion in perspective of what it actually is.
Yeah. Well, that's why what we're talking about today matters so much. We're going to be talking about theft in churches and how to protect your church's money. I'm Dan Porbay.
And I'm Greg Daly.
And we're with Parable. And we are your church financial team. And we help churches just like yours with accounting, payroll, and CFO services. And today we're going to be trying to help you understand the risk to your church so that you can protect your dollars and keep every dollar on mission. Wait, you said 60 million with an M.
No, that's billion with a B.
$60 billion.
And just to put that in perspective, that's over 160 million today, and then another 160 million tomorrow. Like we can't even fathom that much money, but that is more than what is sent by U.S. churches, just churches, to international missions. So that $60 billion number is actually more than what we're giving out.
Wow. So if we could just stop fraud, you could double what's happening in international missions.
And it's heartbreaking. Obviously, this is heartbreaking. And, most of you maybe were stunned by the statistic, but then another thought probably went into your mind, because I know this was my thought when I was a pastor. Well, it's not going to happen to us. I mean, that happens to other people that, don't have good sense maybe. And they call this the good person myth. Most church theft isn't actually committed by villains. These are not bad people necessarily. Wow. They didn't intentionally go to work one day and say, I'm going to steal from the church. Usually, and almost many, many times when you read some of the case studies in this, the actual events that happened, it's good people that worked for the church. It was in a trustworthy environment. So there was high trust and little controls. And then those people fall in financial times and get maybe they get disgruntled, like they're underpaid for so long that they're like, they kind of owe me this money. And so whenever there's a lack of oversight, it allows for some of these things to happen. So the goal is really moving from an unintentional financial system to an intentional one. Our policies don't exist just to be like, got to follow the book or bean counters. They exist to protect people and to ensure the gospel is funded. What you don't want is to create a situation where a person that wouldn't steal normally is tempted to steal simply because they're in a financial hard strait.
Yeah. Well, you hear so often it started with $20 or $100 and it was just...
and they were always going to pay it back.
Right. And they realized nobody knew and they never had to pay it back. And they realized, well, if I could get away with 100, I could get away with 500. And before you know, they've got maybe separate bank accounts set up and they're taking checks and depositing in it. And it spirals out of control really fast. So what do you have to do to protect your finances? And that's what we're going to talk about now. So we talk about robust internal controls. And Greg, we always talk about this as two sets of eyes. What do we mean when we say that?
Yeah, two sets of eyes is better than one here, because especially if those people are unrelated. So if Dan and I, we're not brothers, we're not family, that's better, because chances of us both being in cahoots with each other is less likely.
Okay.
A married couple could be in cahoots with each other,
Right.
right? Because they could talk about it. Hey, you can look the other way when I count this money,
Right.
blah, blah,
Yep.
blah. So you always want to have two sets of eyes on it. Never let one person handle the money alone.
Yeah. Okay. And this goes for kind of all processes. So when you're paying your bills, there should be someone that's like signing a check, but then there's someone that's like approving it, or maybe even, when I was on staff, I could fill out a check, but I was not a signer. And then I had to have someone else that didn't have access to the checks who could sign them. If we were doing back in the check days, or when we used online software, it's like I could approve it and someone else would go in and pay it. And so there's always a couple people involved. And with the weekly offering, there was always two people that were involved. So we always had those two sets of eyes, which both protect the finances, but it protects the people.
And I was a pastor back before there was the cloud. And
Okay.
so I just remember there was a whole stack of checks that would come in and I would have to hand sign them. And then if I needed to, that created a kind of a nightmare scenario for me of like, now I got to go hunt down Bob, who has to sign this check too. The great thing is there are lots of different softwares out there now that make this really easy, that decentralizes the office.
Yeah.
So you don't have to worry about it being an extra headache. In fact, it's so easy now. It makes it so that the transparency is really easy to do.
Yeah, that's great. And I want to give two quotes when we talk about controls. One is, never give an honest person the opportunity to be dishonest. Greg started, it's like you have good people that you trust and there's these trustworthy environments, but you're putting them in a spot where they can be tempted and they can fall to that because there's not accountability. So you never want to just even put that on someone. And then the other one is that good controls protect the church's money, but great controls protect the church's people. Again, you're not doing this just to protect the finances. You're doing this to help protect people in your church that you care and love and trust, and not putting them in a situation where they might fall to temptation or compromise on something. And so,
yeah, I've heard it said, locks don't keep dishonest people out. They keep honest people honest. In God we trust, all others we audit.
Yeah, okay, that's great.
Just testing that trust.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Okay, so we've also kind of hinted at this, but the idea of using technology. So how can technology help with controls and protecting your finances?
Yeah, like I said, the great thing is no more do you have to have this paper trail. You can have a digital paper trail. The manual systems, usually what they do is they create extra bureaucratic kind of paperwork when they're not automated. And so then it makes it hard to follow. And what our goal is always like, how can we make this as easy to follow as possible so that people will do it? Right. Yeah. And so the digital way of doing it, a tech stack creates an unalterable audit trail that's both auditable. So if you ever get to an audit situation, you can just pull it up really easily.
Yeah, right.
But it also puts it all in one place. And I think that's a really important, especially with bills. If a bill comes in the mail and a bill comes in the email, and where do those all go? If you have one, you want to get to a place where you've got actually everything in one place.
Yeah, that's great. And it gives so many more people opportunity. Like you can get the right people access to that software. They can see it. You can have volunteers that don't need to come check on things in the church frequently. They can check on it at home at night or whatever as they have time, and make sure, everything is happening the way it's supposed to. I always joke when I was on staff at the church and overseeing our finances, like I always thought about how would I steal money, not because I was going to steal money. I'm like, how do I make sure that we're protecting, and always thinking like, okay, do we just
it's like
add
the friendly hacker.
Exactly. Like, you're thinking about it from the way, like when someone gets converted, once they've like broken into all the CIA stuff or whatever, it's like, how do you hack into these things in the right way? Right. And so, but for me, it was always like, where are the gaps? And what I loved is with technology, it made it so easy to give someone, whether it was other people on the staff and also volunteers, access and where they can see very clearly what's happening. And so you're like, if I were to do anything, they would know right away. There's no hiding it. And so I just love Tech Stack for that.
It's also empowering to your staff because one, it allows a prove to do before because there's multiple voices in that system, right? And so there's checks and balances built in. So it puts kind of the approving capabilities in the hands of the people that are actually making the spending, which is a good place for it to sit, at least to approve from the standpoint of, yeah, this is an actual bill that I meant to pay, especially in this digital world where fraudulent bills come in all the time.
Yep.
We see it all the time where, people try to sneak in a fraudulent bill from a company that doesn't even exist or whatever, but also, accidentally sometimes people overcharge you. And this is a good place for that person that really knows what the spend is supposed to be to approve that.
That's so good. So we've talked about kind of having a tech stack. Well, what are some of the recommended tools? So we'll just tell you what our kind of tech stack is, but we use QuickBooks Online. We really like that because, again, it's not stuck on a computer with a person that can have control, but it's online, it's in the cloud. People can be logging in. Again, you give access to the right people, but you can have volunteers and other staff, whatever makes sense. We use Bill, formerly Bill.com, to automate approval workflows. I loved this because I could, like you're saying, a ministry leader could spend some money. They could see and make sure, yeah, that's what I meant to send. They can approve it. And then it could come to me and I could approve it. And then I could have someone on our financial team that could then actually pay it. And so we had multiple sets of eyes on that just to make sure that we are supposed to pay it and that it's not, going to a fraudulent company and all of that.
And all of these can be done from your phone now, which is awesome.
Is so great. Yeah.
Because if you're at a conference, you're somewhere, you're even maybe on vacation, but you're the only one that can approve it, whatever. You can approve it from your phone on the go.
Yeah. And for expenses, we like Expensify or Bill Spend and this is where we'll tie it to a credit card. And so, I love this too. You scan your credit card, your phone buzzes, you take a picture of the receipt, you mark the category and you're done. And it makes it very trackable. You don't have to do a big old report at the end of the month or try to find receipts, and makes it simple, but again, gives a lot of visibility to it. All right, so let's talk about transparency in reporting. And so, what are some of the issues with that we see?
Yeah, clear and accurate reports for financial leaders that are accurately helpful that they can understand. That is what we're talking about when we talk about transparency reporting. Many times we talk to churches and they're confused by their finances. No one really knows, and it happens because no one really knows what's happening behind the curtain in a sense. And it happens because sometimes the reports are just inaccurate. Like the money doesn't add up, something doesn't look right. It says we have money, but there's no money showing up in the bank. That's a common one.
Okay.
That it says we should have some money left, but when we look at our bank account, it says zero or worse.
Yeah.
Or that they're confusing, they're super long, they're too detailed. For me, I hate spreadsheets. So if they look like a spreadsheet, sometimes I'm like, my brain can't handle it. Names of things aren't meaningful, so we don't even understand what this should go to, right? Or the names of the actual thing don't exist. I remember one time I just had to classify it as postage. That's all I was looking for, like postage. It was a stamp, and I couldn't figure out where to put it, what to categorize it as. Or there's no standards, so you're not sure again where the money is going or why it's going there. So we want to get to a place where rather than all of that tangled mess, that they're more accurate and that people can understand them. I'm sorry, I got off on some tangent here, and I don't even know where I am.
Okay. I'll just kind of pick it up.
Okay.
Yeah. So another thing is sometimes the reports are accurate, but nobody understands them, right? Or similarly, they're accurate and someone might understand them.
They add up to the dollar or the penny.
Yeah. So we often go in and maybe there's someone at the church and they hand us the reports and we're like, your reports aren't bad, but they don't understand them because they're not trained. Or what also happens is sometimes there is someone who knows, like a volunteer, but they don't have the time. And so they're not actually watching them and making sure that, everything is actually where it should be or whatever. So sometimes you have.
I remember this happened to me a lot as a pastor.
Okay, right. Yeah.
The reports just come on a monthly basis, and you're like, how did a month go by? How am I getting back? How do I have to read this report again? Maybe I already read this one.
Right. Yeah.
That's what
You're
I
like.
was
I don't know. Looks like the same report as last month, right? Numbers might have changed, right? So what we say is you need reports that are clear and easy to understand. And there's a few different levels of reports, and I'm just going to go through them kind of briefly on here, and then we'll point you to a tool that we have. But you do need a detailed view, and this is what you're used to getting. This is your profit and loss and balance sheet, or a statement of activity and a statement of financial position in the nonprofit world. But this is your typical reports, and these are what you think of as an accounting report, and lots of numbers and kind of that full ledger. And this is good for people who understand it, people who are responsible for your finances, to have a more detailed level. The problem is for most people, that's too much and they glaze over. They don't really understand it. And so they don't really know what to do. And so what I like to use the analogy of is, this is like when I got my first car, had this like plug in it. You could plug this device into it when the engine light came on, and the device would spit out a code. And then there's this huge book you look through and you're like, okay, that code. Okay, I need to change the starter, whatever it is. And that's kind of like what these reports are. If you're a mechanic, you understood that and that was meaningful to you. Mm. But for most people today, the problem is you're not the mechanic. And so you get these accounting reports and it's like, I don't know what these mean. Well, now in cars, it just says you need to get your oil changed, or this is wrong, your tire pressure's low, whatever. The display just tells you. And so that's what you want to get with your financial report. And so we talk about financial dashboards for that. And this is a way of kind of visually displaying your financial metrics where you can see trends, you can see if you're off track or on track with certain numbers, and it makes it really easy to then understand your finances. It's not the same level of detailed view, but you can start to see problems, and then you can bring people into the view and give them the details where they can help you, the people that understand it. Now, we'll go one more where we talk about a core 4 report. So this is, we'd say there's 4 numbers that basically all of the pastors, key leaders of a church should know, whether you're a finance person or not. And I'm going to give them to you with 4 words. You don't even have to know like a number. These are just get, keep, have, and gave. If you know that, then you would have a really good understanding of your church finances. So what do I mean by that? So when you say get, it's what did you get? What was your income? Keep, what did you keep? So that's your income minus your expenses. Have is what do you have? How much cash on hand? And then gave, how many people gave to church? What's your number of donors? And so if you understand those numbers for the church, you have a quick view. It takes 2 or 3 minutes to review those numbers. You'd have a pretty good sense for what's happening in the church. And you're not going to know specific problems, but if a problem is starting to bubble up, you're going to start to see it in these numbers. And that's where you can get your financial people to help you understand what that is. And I'll say this, it's both a good like accountability thing. It's also a really good way to build trust in your donors. If I'm talking to a pastor and say, I want to give to that church, and, we say donor, but really like I'm thinking invest in this ministry. And I say, hey, tell me a little bit about the finances. And you say, I don't know. You make a joke about it or kind of ignore it. I'm not going to have a lot of trust that you know what's happening with your finances and that you're going to care for the money. But if you said, well, hey, look, yeah, our income, the last 3 months, it's been trending up. And so we're seeing a lot of strength with that. We've been really good on keeping to our budget and our expenses. And so we've been able to save some money each month. Our cash on hand is going up because of that. And, we've been tracking our donors and we've seen actually, God's growing our donor base. Like those 4 numbers actually gives me a lot of confidence. Like, oh, cool. You understand your finances. So this we call our core 4. And I would say the other piece to this is we like to see it where you can see a trend from the last 13 months. Because again, one number is a data point, but if you can see that trend over time, you understand like what's happening. Is giving increasing? And there's seasonality to all of this. And so you start to see that over time. And I like to see 13 months because then I can see the same month a year ago and I can compare how are we compared to that month as well.
I love that. It keeps rolling out.
Yeah. We have a tool for this. We have a nice report as part of our service, but if you don't have that, we just have a spreadsheet that you can put these numbers in and just do that. It takes maybe 5 or 10 minutes to update every month. You send it out to your team. And in a couple minutes, everyone will have a really good sense of your finances. So at least do that.
So now we have a quick audit, like kind of some questions to think through to see, do you have the right Do you have the right things in place? So controls, do you have multiple people with access to your finances who regularly or who understand them and then are regularly checking on them? Another one is access. Does one person have the keys to the kingdom? Kind of one key to rule them all? Total control over the banks and the books? This would be bad. If so, you are at risk. Another one is transparency. Could a third party look at your books today and understand every dollar spent? Could they understand what's most important to your church?
I love that last one because it's not just our reports right, but it's like, hey, are they actually telling the story of our finances? And you look at this and say, this church is prioritizing these things. These are their mission things, what's important to them. So it both helps with transparency and protect against theft, but it's also vision,
Totally.
to have that correct.
So financial integrity builds congregational trust. And when people trust how the money is handled, they're more likely to be generous with the dollars that they have. If they know that what you want is for your people to believe that by giving to your church, it is the best investment out there because it has the most kingdom ROI, the most kingdom return on that investment possible. So there's a couple of resources I wanted to mention. One is download our church financial toolkit at liveyourparable.com/financial-summit. That's liveyourparable.com/financial-summit to get the full checklist for their team. And then we've got that download the Core 4 template that Dan was talking about. That's at liveyourparable.com/financial-summit as well. And then we have an upcoming book that's coming out that will help you understand how best to safeguard the mission. That it requires more than just good intentions, that it requires shared oversight, wise guardrails, and to keep the trusted, trustworthy, and the predators or the wolves out. This book is coming out. It'll help you think about your finances differently. Yes, to protect against fraud, but also really to protect against mission miss. So don't let your church's story be defined by fraud. Check out more about the upcoming book at liveyourparable.com/financial-summit.
Well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next video.
Thanks for joining us for Distilled, Church Finance Made Simple. Be sure to hit subscribe and catch our future episodes. Distilled is brought to you by Parable. Parable is your church financial team. We help churches like yours with accounting, payroll, and CFO services. To find more episodes of Distilled, resources from the show, or to connect with us about how we can help your church finances, visit us at churchfinanceMadeSimple.com.